Hey, we are back live with Harrowings, and this is going to be about one battle after another. If you see the poster over the couch, my guest, Brian Hassett, will be back in a moment. I think he's stepped away to get a book or two, but we are going to be talking about this movie, which is kind of a blockbuster as far as some people were concerned. And Brian, you're here.
Yeah,
You manifest. Love the Stedman, right?
yeah, Ralph Steadman
Ralph
did a
Steadman
special because
t-shirt
the
from
Dead playing
Vegas.
in Vegas. So it's Ralph Steadman, Hunter Thompson, The Dead, The Sphere, Vegas, all in one.
Beautiful, beautiful. Um, we both share a lot of interests. Brian, though, is the author of many books, including my favorite, The Hitchhiker's Guide to Jack Kerouac. There we go, and that could be yours. Um, but we're here really to talk about one battle after another, a film that has really moved you a bit, and I'm gonna give you the microphone. You can tell us however you'd like to present it.
um, excuse me. Well, I started. I've studied all the art forms. I'm 64 now. I studied all the art forms starting when I was 13. I first discovered rock and roll. Like my friends were all sort of listening to what their older brothers were playing or was on the radio. And I immediately went, where did this come from? And, got these books on the history of rock and roll and began reading, the simplistic version from 1955 on. And, uh, and I've done that all my life. I've studied theater, literature, nonfiction, poetry. I had a girlfriend who was a ballerina, so I studied ballet. And when I was at NYU, I took like Renaissance art to study all the paintings. But I never got around to film. And not that there was any, dislike for it or disrespect. It just somehow never happened. And then when the the COVID lockdown happened, and we couldn't go out, um, uh, you know, um, oh, now I can watch all these movies I've never had a chance to watch. So that began 6 years ago, my deep dive study into film, which I've been on nonstop now for 6 years. Um, like, in the old days, like, if you said, "Did you see this movie?" About all I could say about it was, I liked it, I didn't like it, so and so was good, I love this part,
Yeah.
which I think what, like, 90% of, film viewers, it's about the extent of what they can say. But now, I'm studying like production design, editing, sound editing, costuming, of course, script and casting and cinematography and all these different elements. Um, so I see film so much differently.
Mhm.
And I've loved PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson, for the rest of this call. He began to be known as PTA.
I heard that, yeah.
On Boogie Nights in 1997 when he
Oh, that was his?
yeah, and he kind of
Hmm.
really put the planted his flagpole in the cinema world with that movie. And anyway, so Paul Thomas Anderson is PTA, and, um, so I love his filmmaking, but the subject matter of a lot of his post-Boogie films I haven't loved. Like the last one, Licorice Pizza, was a high school student falling for his teacher. Before that was, Phantom Thread about a stuck-up, stuffy clothing designer played by Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah, even The Master, which is considered his, next greatest movie.
Oh, right, that was with Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of his last films.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it came into sequence, but, and Joaquin Phoenix, and
Uh-huh.
Philip Seymour Hoffman plays this, kind of diabolical, like, cult leader, and
Yes. I
and
live right near that guy's real house, you know?
what why?
L. Ron Hubbard. It's
Oh,
supposed to be what
really?
it's modeled on, and L. Ron Hubbard's founding church is about a block away from me.
Wow.
I haven't been in there yet, but they're open every day at 10 AM. But go ahead, don't let me take you afield.
And, so and then There Will Be Blood is about a pretty kind of despicable guy, also played by Daniel Day-Lewis. So I love his filmmaking sense, his editing, his scripts, his dialogue, his casting, but I haven't, loved the characters. And
Mm,
he um this weird light here. Um he But then this one, is about these sort of like 60s radicals.
right.
Um and then like it opens with this 33-minute prologue about their time being radicals, and then it skips to 16 years later, and now they're living sort of in secret undercover, um, off the grid, in the redwoods in Northern California, which is one of my
Right.
favorite places in North America. So like, it's PTA filmmaking, but suddenly it's, subject matters that I like a lot more. And
Right.
um, and it's funny. It's definitely the funniest movie he's ever made. And, and I remember, like, it was last summer that I saw, a still saying, the next PTA movie, was, Leonardo on the payphone, which is like the image that of the movie. And, I said, "Oh, man, Leonardo DiCaprio is gonna be in the next Paul Thomas Anderson movie? Are you kidding? Wouldn't that be neat if PTA had a hit?" Because his biggest movie so far has been, was There Will Be Blood,
Oh, right.
which only brought in like 75 million at the box office. So he's never been a box office guy, but film people love him. And so, I was like, "Oh, man," like Leo DiCaprio, and so I knew nothing about it. And then, also it was gonna like, it came out on a Friday, September 26th, and at the last minute, I found out it was also coming out in IMAX. So, I went opening night with the thought that, like, I'm probably gonna wanna see this movie more than once. I should go opening night and get a start on this. So that's what happened, and like, right and I took about 13 pages of notes in my reporter's notebook while I was watching, and, one of them was, the movie we've been waiting for since Boogie Nights, and also, movie for adults, because so much of what theatrical films are now is sort of movies for kids. Or they're, the intellectual property of like, Marvel movies or whatever.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And this is, a completely created world, and it's a movie for adults, and it's funny. So I just fell in love with it during that first screening. Um, and the movie is so rich, that, it takes multiple viewings. And because like, the first time you see it, it's kind of so overwhelming. So much is happening. There's so many great performances. And so, like, you might be, for instance, you're watching a scene that, say, got Sean Penn in it. Oh, and for this conversation, I'm going to say the names of the actors as opposed to the characters they're playing.
Please.
It'll be easier for listeners. Like the Sean Penn, performance is so outstanding, and, he won the SAG last weekend, and he won the BAFTA. Um, so you're watching it, and there could be like 2 characters in the scene, and, like, you're transfixed by one of them. And, it's not until my 2nd or 3rd or 4th viewing that, like, oh, uh that other person is unbelievable as well, like, because you can't take your eyes off of one of them, and there's another person in the scene that is equally as unbelievable. So, after that first screening, I've now seen it a total of 9 times in theaters, um, 3 in IMAX and at least 2 of them in 70 mil, but, like, each time I would go, I'd find all these other things that, because it's so overwhelming, you don't see at first, and that's a sign of a great movie. That was how this whole thing got started. And um,
Great ensemble cast.
Unbelievable. Okay, cast. You wanna go to cast. Uh,
Wherever you wanna go, Brian. It's your show, man.
um,
You
so
are the
this year,
leader.
pardon me?
You are the leader of this.
This year, the Academy has finally started a Best Casting Oscar,
Oh, wow. Good.
and, so this will be the inaugural year, and I really think this movie deserves it, for the reason
Mhm.
that, first of all, they cast 3 Academy Award winning actors, okay? Um, Leo, Sean, and Benicio del Toro. Um, and all 3 of the so the casting is so perfect, and they embrace the role so beautifully. 1, 2, and 3, all 3 of them are nominated for acting awards this year. So that's fantastic casting, right there. Then, and this is a fascinating, wonderful story. Um, so I don't know if you know about this about Inglorious Bastards, Tarantino's movie. Um, they had made it, or no, he had written it, and they needed a male actor in his 40s or 50s who could speak English, French, and German and be a great actor. And they couldn't find this person. He looked for literally, I think, a couple of years, um, and couldn't find the person. And Tarantino was like, well, maybe I'll just publish this as a novel. He and his producers were ready to give up on it. And then they found Christoph Waltz. And as they tell the story, finally in this audition room, they meet Christoph Waltz, and Tarantino turns to his producer, Lawrence Bender, and says, looks like we're making a movie. And they couldn't make it unless they had an actor who could do that. Okay. So that movie would not exist if they hadn't found Christoph Waltz. This movie, they needed an actress who was mixed race, who could look 16 years old, and who could carry scenes with Leonardo DiCaprio and Sean Penn.
Right,
And, thank God they found this Chase Infinity, and this is her first film ever.
right,
So that gets to the casting, you see. So they picked these, giants of the industry, Oscar winners, and put them in roles that are so perfect. They're so perfectly suited that they deliver Oscar nominated performances in this. Then they find this woman who's never been in a film before and only done like one little TV show, a few episodes, cast her, and she nails it. She's unbelievable. Um, so there's that. Then they also cast for so perfectly. Oh, and then for especially the first time you see it. Oh, and like spoiler alert, there's going to be I'm
yeah,
not about stuff. So if you don't want to know, um, but all like 39 minutes in, I believe, suddenly it goes to this white supremacist club meeting, and I'm like, what? Am I hearing this right? Like, what in the
uh,
hell? Yeah, white supremacists, in a PTA movie? Like, what? And, but he brilliantly cast, Tony Goldwyn, who kind of the bad guy in Ghost and a number he's a great, bad guy, almost a JT Walsh, a current day JT Walsh, um, and James Downey, known as Jim Downey, who has, been in almost nothing. The older guy, but he was like the longest serving writer at Saturday Night Live.
uh,
He's a comedy writer. And
interest
again, in the casting, like they take this guy who's a comedy writer and
huh?
a central role as a white supremacist. It's it's just unbelievable casting. And this is where it gets really extraordinary, in my opinion. Um, they cast all of these people who have never been in front of a camera in their life,
Wow.
including this interrogator who's one of the like the senior sort of military people.
Mhm.
Um, his name's James Ratterman. He was a Homeland Security special agent and has occasionally consulted on some film projects, like to help filmmakers be accurate to the medium or
Yeah,
to the military aspects. And, as he tells it, like, all of a sudden, out of the blue, one day he gets a phone call, um, he gets that, like, a text message. "Hi, my name's Paul Thomas Anderson. I make movies. Do you think I could give you a call?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, when do you wanna talk?" "Well, how about right now?" And, PTA, cast him, and he just slays it in this movie. And again, never been on camera before in his life. And then when they were, they Benicio del Toro, lives in this store, and it's sort of a front for, like an underground, like an immigration, distribution place to help immigrants get into the country and then get them out into jobs. And
Hmm.
they found this store in El Paso, and the casting director just, like, loved the woman who ran the store and loved the people who worked there, and that's who they cast. So, all of those people are
Talk
just,
about authenticity. All right.
and this is, and then there's this little sequence in the middle where, um, Leonardo, gets caught, and, he's in jail, and he has to go to the intake nurse in the jail, and that is a real intake nurse at the jail in El Paso.
That's fantastic. And,
Yeah.
to put a little flesh on this for us too, PTA has taken a Thomas Pynchon novel called Vineland, or Vinland, as I like to pronounce it, but I believe it's Vineland, 1990, which but he's taken it up into the present day, and all of the context you're seeing really relate to what we're living in real time in this one, whereas Pynchon's 1990 thing was more about all the guys from the '60s, and the character Bob that DiCaprio plays, in the novel, that character, the very opening of it, he has to do something certifiably insane publicly to sustain his benefits. I don't think that's part of this movie necessarily, but you get the point.
Huh,
So, he has to actually throw himself, like, through a public shop window, be seen doing it so that he will be still certified insane,
huh.
which I love.
Well,
Anyway, go
uh,
ahead with the movie.
um, as to, the plot structure, um, um, um,
Mhm.
PTA has been working on this ideas of this, elements of it since
Yeah,
1999.
right.
And he hadn't read the Pynchon book yet, or
No, he's
didn't
so
have,
that kind of is a back stitches in, but isn't mapping, right? But I
yeah.
would did wanna give Pynchon a shout out because he just released a new novel, by the way, and nobody ever sees the guy. Anyway, go ahead.
Um, yeah, and then so he was sort of messing around with these ideas, and then he read the Pynchon book, and that kind of gave him some more, "Oh, well, maybe I could have these characters kind of doing this." So it's
Yeah.
extremely loosely, just you might just say, loosely inspired by Vineland.
Infused, baby.
Yeah, it's absolutely not an adaptation of the book,
Yep.
but and so then he was still sort of messing around with, "How do I tell this story?" Um,
Right. Right.
because he liked the idea of the father and daughter sort of living off the grid and being in hiding effectively, and how they interact with the world, that part of it, but he didn't, and then it wasn't until he saw the original Les Miserables movie from
Oh,
1935, before there was ever a musical, when it was a straight novel adaptation.
wow.
And in the novel and in those movies, there's a prologue. I think it's in the musical too, but there's a prologue in Les Miserables that has the main character doing a bunch of stuff, and then in Les Mis, it's 8 years later, but, and in one battle, it's 16 years they jump. But, the that was when the light bulb went on for him. "Oh, I could do a prologue, and that would set up who the main character is and what his story is and why the whole thing exists, then do skip to 16 years later, and then that's really the bulk of the movie." So that's just speaking of the script, that's, a cool thing. Um, and just to finish on the casting thing, like, um there's this funny, and he's a very, PTA was like born and raised in LA, and he's very California. And up in the north, there's something called the I think it's the Valley of the Sisters or something, where they a bunch of like women have sort of stepped out of society, become quasi nuns, and grow pot on their sort of their religious
Hmm,
prop.
yeah, makes
And
sense.
so he took that and made that the place where Willa Chase Infinity goes into hiding. And so he used that real place. Um, and so when he did this, and they found they had to find a mission up there in the north where they could film it. He brought in a bunch of these real sisters who grow pot to be the nuns in the
Yeah, yeah,
movie. And a whole bunch of the soldiers are real soldiers. And when Benicio gets arrested, those are real LAPD cops. So all throughout this movie, you're seeing again these Oscar-winning actors that we all know instantly with these faces, and then it's completely peopled with people who have never been on screen before.
yeah.
So I just, I love that element of it.
Right, right.
So
It's
that's
rich.
yeah.
It adds to that depth to have that authenticity there. And I take it the actors who got a chance to train pretty well, the non-acting actors, so to speak, you know, and I get the impression that the cast sort of worked together for a long time before really coming together and deciding, "Yes, these are the cast members." So, that was kind of interesting to hear about in the interviews I had with the cast just before we got on here.
Yeah, there's also I should kind of mention, um, Regina Hall,
Yes.
who is a normally or most of her does is a comedic actress.
Yeah.
And, when word sort of got out that PTA was making a sort of a comedy-ish film and he
Uh-huh.
cast Regina Hall, we all thought, "Oh, man, she's gonna kill." But she's in a completely dramatic role.
Straight.
And and by the way, she tells a funny story about her and PTA are neighbors in whatever neighborhood they live in there in LA,
Uh-huh.
become kind of friendly. And PTA, contacted her and said, "Oh, hey, what are you doing this afternoon? Maybe I'll come over." And she'd been redoing her backyard, and she thought, "Oh, he wants to come over and see what I've done in the backyard." And comes over and she's like, "Oh, hi, come on, let me show you what I've done." And takes him out into her yard, assuming that's what he's there for, and says, "See, I put in these bricks here and these new plants over here." And eventually he's like, great. Can we go in the house and talk?" And, so that's how she got involved. And then, of course, Tiana Taylor, who's up for Best Supporting Actress, and won it at the Golden Globes. Um, so there are a few other actors in there that are,
Yeah.
regular SAG people. But anyway, so just that funny casting thing. Um, and then, and it's like, I also wrote down it's cinematic storytelling, um,
Yeah.
which is like, again, just a mature filmmaker, and it's not like splashy, like explosions and there's absolutely no CGI, computer generated,
Oh, great. Yeah, I
uh,
love that.
none.
Are you familiar with Dogma 95 by any chance? The Danish film school?
No.
They did absolutely no special lighting even. They Anyway, we'll go into that some other time.
Um, and there's no CGI and there's no except for the vape smoke.
Oh,
Um, the Leo character smokes a vape pen, and apparently, whatever the consistency is of vape smoke, it
right.
doesn't show up. It's not picked up on a camera.
I see.
So the
Yes.
only CGI you see in the movie is they had to add in when he blow out vape smoke. Isn't that funny? Um, and also speaking of PTA and his incredible filmmaking is there is no ADR like automated dialogue replacement or looping as it's also known, where in a lot of movies, in fact in almost all movies and TV shows, you see a whole lot of the dialogue that you hear
Mhm.
has been re-recorded in a recording studio.
Yeah.
And the, actor has to, go in there, and they actually play the scene on a big screen, and the actor's in front of a microphone and mimics, says again exactly how they said it when it was filmed. PTA has no ADR in his movies, and so the sound guys have to get it right live when it's going down, or there's no second take. And so this is another reason, another one of, you know,
Yeah.
why film people love PTA movies. I love PTA movies. They're so authentic, no
Yeah.
CGI. And he's really sort of mastered, now I think this is his 10th film, cinematic storytelling. And what I, sometimes, kind of hate about, other movies, is like they'll have dialogue that kind of explains what's happening and sort of,
Well, voiceover, where she
well,
had
no, but even just a character will say,
sure.
"Okay, well, this is what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking it," sort of thing.
Right, right, right.
And, and PTA is it's cinematic storytelling. It's by visuals. And there's a fantastic sequence in this movie where there's not one word of dialogue spoken,
Mhm.
where, the, Tiana Taylor character has been put in a safe house and, in suburbia, and she's a revolutionary, and she's not taken to this, kind of safe house at the end of Goodfellas, how the same thing, like the Ray Liotta character is suddenly not a good fella anymore, and he hates being in the suburbs. Well, so she's put there, and you just see her sort of pensively looking out the window, and then the Sean Penn character comes over looking for her because, he is in love with her, and he comes, knocks on the door, breaks down the door, goes into the apartment, and then when we see her, li kind of going on the run, and she goes into a clothing store and buys some clothes to kind of be this guy and go and cross the border into Mexico, and this whole sequence of the film, there's not one word of dialogue spoken. It's just imagery, and
Yeah.
that's cinema. And that's what again, this is a movie for adults, made by adults for adults. This is just spectacular filmmaking and why it's won all of these Best Picture awards already in every contest it's been in. Um, so anyway, there's that cinematic storytelling. Um, oh, and then just another thing, was, you were talking about, had the sort of the timeliness of it and
Mhm.
how it's
Oh,
sort of
yes.
speaking to what's going on in, Minneapolis and with the ice raids and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And so one, think about it, that all of this was written and set up and pre-production and everything and filmed during the Biden presidency, when
Uh,
there was no thought that Trump was ever gonna get back in, and all of these insane, authoritarian things he does were ever gonna be reality. So just dig that all of the stuff that we're seeing in the dramatic, um, dramatizations of what are basically ICE raids. It's this anti-immigrant,
mhm.
government out of control, government using the military for
Right.
personal vendettas. All of that was written when there was no thought that there was going to be an authoritarian, egomaniac, disrespecting all the laws of society and governance. So that's and so but also this film deals with white supremacists. It deals with authoritarian governments. Military out of control, to fulfill personal vendettas. Father-daughter relationship, so like a single father with a
Right.
teenage daughter, and a mixed race daughter. Like so many of the subjects that are key to this movie
Right.
would not be touched by, like a studio would go, "What? Are you kidding? We're not making this." Pass.
Especially now with the Paramount thing. Have you heard of that?
Well,
The
yeah,
Ellisons getting in there, and they're gonna buy Paramount, merging and with and oh, woo. I
yeah.
was hearing about it on the radio yesterday, and I was like, "Oh god." Really? Okay, here we
And
are.
just to continue,
Please.
pointing out, great things, that PTA does, okay?
Mm,
And so,
yep,
he's been nominated for 11 Oscars prior to this
okay.
year. and never won. And for good or ill, the Academy voters, you know, often tend to sort of make up for past neglect in a current movie, like, Liz
Mm.
Taylor winning for Butterfield 8 and not Cat on a Hot Tin Roof is the famous catastrophically stupid, example of it. But where was I going? Um so he's this incredible filmmaker, right? And I've told you about this, no CGI, no ADR. Well, another thing he does that you can observe and enjoy in this movie is all of the phone conversations, and there's a few of them that are key in this movie, are done with the other actor on set in a room right adjacent to the lead. So they're actually talking on the phone. And
Right.
and that, often in films and TV, there might not even be anybody on the end of the phone, and the actor's like, "Well, this is what I think," and, "Gee, really? Oh, pause. Well, I'm not gonna do that." And there's nobody on the other end of the phone. The actor's just making it all up. Well, in PTA films, they are always on there's the other actor is in the room next door, and they're really talking on the phone. So that's just and it creates authenticity, and then when you do, for instance, a second or third take, the 2 people are actually talking. So the conversation becomes much more real because, there it's 2 people having a real conversation, so the conversations are more real. And there's a great little part in it where, Leo is because he's off the grid and been told not to use modern phones because they can be tapped.
Yeah.
I don't even know if this is true, but it's in the movie. So he's using this ancient phone, okay,
Right.
like from the '80s or something, right? And in this one particular scene that takes place in Benicio's apartment, where he finally reconnects with his revolutionary group, the French 75, you can see the little red light is on the phone on this, and if this was just a prop, you wouldn't see that. But that phone is really working, and you see the little red light. It's
Yeah.
very subtle. You only see it in a couple of shots, but it's because he's really talking to somebody in the other room. Um, so just, I mean, that's just one of the many, elements about what's authentic and great and unusual about PTA films. And also, I want to point out that,
Into the detail.
yes,
Mhm.
and authenticity, like, it's not fake.
Yeah.
Um, and that also he is very close with Steven Spielberg, who is the most successful filmmaker in the history of film by a long shot. Um, 3 billion people have paid to see Steven Spielberg movies. The number 2, I was like, "I wonder who's number 2." I bet it's James Cameron because of Titanic and Avatar, and sure enough, it is. But he's at 2. And then every other director cumulatively who's ever made movies is 1 and below. So Spielberg is up here, Cameron is here, and everybody else is down here. Whoever your favorite filmmakers are, they're Spielberg is 3 times as many, people have gone so he's the most successful filmmaker in all of history, and he loves PTA, and PTA loves him. And there
Yeah.
was a really funny thing just now at at the Oscar luncheon they have, and PTA and Spielberg are chumming around together, and there's some clips of it online, and, there was when it was presented when One Battle was presented at the Directors Guild in LA, Spielberg came and conducted an interview with him on stage. Oh, and said, so it's like he has frickin', Steven Spielberg as his kind of,
Yeah.
guy, you know? And, what was I gonna say? Oh, at that DGA thing, he said Spielberg said on stage that he thought it's his favorite Sean Penn performance of his entire career.
That's great.
So that's kinda cool. Um, yeah, so those are those things.
Oh, man.
Um, and then
I
also
could
just
go off in any of these directions. Go ahead. You just go on your direction. I don't wanna steer you away.
um, well, just, some other cool things. Uh, he, you know, there are auteur, the term auteur comes from
Yeah.
the word meaning author, meaning, and so it was really applied in the late 50s to directors who wrote and directed their own films. They were the
Right.
author of.
Seeking the author of this film was what my old film studies professor at Pitt used to say.
Okay.
In German, though. We were doing Weimar cinema. Go
Uh,
ahead.
he, uh, like particularly like for instance Tarantino, or who was the other one? Oh, Sam Shepard really wanted
Yeah.
the dialogue as written to be exactly what's delivered on the screen. There's a funny Sam Shepard a story where he's I guess it was what is that one? Love. I can't remember the film right now, but anyway, the actor was doing it, and Sam Shepard is off stage, and the actor's line is something like, "Well, I'm not sure, blah blah blah," and the actor, James Earl Jones, or somebody who's amazing, right? And Shepard says, "The guy just does two ums."
You're gonna tell James Earl Jones that, okay.
Yes, yeah, Shepard stops him. There's three ums. Like that's how and Tarantino is known to be exact to the words, right?
Do you know that Joni Mitchell's Coyote apparently is about Sam Shepard?
Yeah.
I love that. And the Patti Smith, in M Train, she writes a lot about the cowboy. That's Sam Shepard.
Yep.
He bought her a guitar in the '60s in Greenwich Village, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And that guitar occasionally appears on Patty's Substack. If you haven't got Patty on Substack, you tune in.
Yeah, you recommended
She's a
her.
lot of fun. But anyway, if you want her to read you Uncle Wiggily anyway, which she tends to do.
Yeah,
So, let's get back to some of these films. Sean Penn, what an actor. I mean, did you ever see Sweet and Lowdown by any chance?
I
Was a
haven't.
Woody Allen flick?
Woody Allen?
Sweet and Lowdown. It was about this guitar player, jazz guitar player, and Sweet and Lowdown was "De and Mo" in, Danish where I saw it, but it was a beautiful film in a lot of ways. He was fascinated by Django Reinhardt, right?
Okay.
He thought he was the best guitarist there was, except for this gypsy in France, Django.
Huh.
Anyway,
You say that's a
so
Woody Allen movie?
yeah, Sweet and Lowdown. Sean Penn acting. There's another great one with no, that's Robin Wright Penn. The Pledge I was thinking about with Jack Nicholson, but he's not in that. Sean Penn is not in that, it's his ex. But anyway, it goes on. And the films, I was thinking about Wim Wenders when you were talking about the casting of this one, because when Wim Wenders got, um, Wings of Desire is what it's called in English, going, he just had this idea about angels in Berlin, and
Mm,
he didn't really have the story, and he got his actors together, and, Otto Sander played the a angel. Cassiel said, "How will we discover the story?" And he says, "Well, we're gonna discover that together."
mm.
And eventually they get Peter Falk in it, right? And, yeah, that was a brilliant film. But auteur films, right? There's directors who are also writing or having writers work with them. In that case, Peter Handke. In this case, you do have a bit of, Pynchon laced into that. I doubt very much Pynchon was involved in any of this. He probably had to sign off on something, but, it was just basically that PTA read the novel and you get a little flavor of it. And I think that flavor of paranoia,
Mm.
you know, of what's gonna happen to this world with the society with these undercurrents in it, and he was sensing that is what you're telling me. Doing
Yeah,
it during the Biden administration, as we said. Go ahead.
yeah. Oh, well, he had, PTA had, adapted much more faithfully, a Pynchon's novel, Inherent Vice, um,
Yes,
by
I
s
have I got own a copy. Yeah.
okay, several years ago.
Mhm.
So he's a fan, and he'd adapted it before, and
Yep.
so I'm sure they're in touch, and, so I'm sure it wasn't a big deal for, Pynchon to, sign off on this.
Yeah, I can't I would there's so many good pension stuff out there, and he's so diverse. My first exposure was The Crying of Light Lot 49. Did you ever encounter that
Mm.
with Oedipa Maas as the main character? And it's all based around, Turn in Taxis postage stamps of all things.
Huh.
It's kinda mind-blowing stuff, and I got that in my literary criticism class in, Randolph-Macon, which was just like a we had these little terms where we just take one course and concentrate on that alone for, like, a month, breaking up our semesters, and that was mine. It was literary criticism with, oh god, Shekels, Thomas Shekels, I think was his name. Great English professors I had there. One of them used to hang with T.S. Eliot and W.H. Auden, and, I didn't know it. I was having breakfast every morning with this guy, and I didn't know who I was sitting with.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, anyway, let's get back to the film.
So we're talking about like scripts and staying authentic to the script, and some
Yes,
auteurs are really you know
persnickety,
yeah about that.
like Shepard.
Right, and Tarantino, and but
Mhm.
uh brilliantly and wonderfully, PTA is not, and he really loves to. He really he and his actors and different extent to his production designers and cinematographers and editors and certainly his score writer Johnny Greenwood, you know, they collaborate in their own way, but with the actors, he very much gives them um, some rein to um, do it as they feel it. And so actors love working with him for that reason because they really become co-collaborators on the project. And again, so that's another you're talking about stuff that makes PTA movies special, and why they work so well. Um, and just something when I started studying film, um, filmmaking is the most collaborative art form that humans make. There are more humans involved in the creation of a film than there is in anything else. The closest thing would be theater, um, because because of the similarities, of course. But you have to. But in film, you have everything. You have everything that you'd have in theater: actors, costuming, sets, uh, but script. But in film, all of a sudden now you've got many sets, you've got many things to to design, and then you've got cinematography, and you've got editing, and you've got a score, and so there's all of this. Much. This is the most collaborative thing that humans,
Yes, a collaborative art form.
which I love. Um,
Yes, and so do most of the people who are really into it. Did you ever see Jeff Bridges give his Golden Globe acceptance speech for the Cecil B. DeMille Award, 1999 2019, sorry. It was beautiful. Anyway, he was talking about the people that had influenced him in film, and as he was thanking the, Golden Globes, foreign Hollywood press that gives the Cecil B. DeMille Award. Anyway, I won't go into the details, but collaborative art form was his main thrust. That's why he had to thank so many people,
ah,
that made a big difference in his journey, particularly directors who told him, "Jeff, you're it. Tag, you're it."
mm,
When he wanted
right,
to bail out of a position on a film because he said, "I'm not feeling this, guys." It's like, you couldn't make a mistake if you tried to. You know?
right.
Anyway, he does that bit. And you have delved into film so deeply in the last how long has it been since you really delved into
Cheers.
film? I mean, hmm?
6 years.
6 years now. Yeah. You were showing me your DVD collection at one time or walking me through it when we were just talking on the phone because I called you up because we were texting and I was driving and I was having a hard time. I missed so many exits during that
Ah,
conversation.
that was like a 3-hour call, as I some insane length. That was
Yeah, I'm embarrassed now. But you
well,
were interesting, and one thing led to another.
there you go. Um, well, how part of that came about was it 2019,
Yeah.
50th anniversary of Woodstock. I had
Ah.
couple friends come over from Denmark, and one of them runs like a secondhand store over there where he finds cool cultural stuff, for
Mm.
cheap, and he knows that there's a market for it. So they stayed at my house here, and
I wanna meet him. Go ahead.
and uh, wanted to go to like thrift stores. And and so I went, and I hadn't been in one in a long time, and I went in, and they had, like, shelves of DVDs for, like,
Yes.
$2 or a dollar,
Yes.
and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting," because, I when I when we were growing up and DVDs came along, they were, $30 for a movie or something, um, and all of it, and now people are sorta getting rid of their DVDs and, Blu-rays, and, so that was how I was like, the so that was in 2019 that I was like, "Oh, this is really like, that's I wouldn't mind getting some cool movies for 2 bucks." And, so then when I got into film, I started to go back to those places, and there's, several of them around, and so now I've got, I think I counted a few weeks, I think it's like 740 or something, DVDs and Blu-rays of a lot of the greatest films ever made, and they've
Yeah.
got directors, like, about learning about film, like, PTA never went to film school, Tarantino never went to film school, and both of them have cited, PTA in particular, that the director's commentaries on movies, like on a Blu-ray, you get it, and then you get a director's commentary where he
Yeah.
wants
Voiceover.
and he says, "Oh, well, when we shot this scene, we were da 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 da," and, like, that's how PTA learned how to make movies in part, he cites.
Yeah. I
Um,
love the one for Wings of Desire, for instance.
oh, haven't seen that.
If you get Wim Wenders and Peter Falk talking over the film. Yeah.
Love that stuff.
Yeah.
And, "Oh, remember when this happened?" And they
Right.
laugh, tell somebody.
Mm.
I love that stuff. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
that's a brilliant film in general because of the black and white, and they had lots of different costume ideas, but they eventually settled on sort of overcoats for the angels, and, you've
and that's
seen it,
stuff
right?
you can learn from a director's commentary.
Yeah, and there's so many others. Wonder Boys has a great, commentary by Curtis Hanson,
Oh,
and I just didn't realize Curtis Hanson died of, like, early onset Alzheimer's,
oh,
in 2016,
oh, I don't think I
but
even knew that. I
really
I
tragic.
I just bought a Wonder Boys, d so that's gonna be on there. It's sitting in my kitchen right now. I hadn't got to it yet.
It's one of the best films on writing that's out there, and
Oh,
you'll appreciate that because you're a writer. By the way, have you written anything on film yet?
oh, yeah,
Any
so
articles?
yeah,
Brian Land?
brianhassett.com, 2 S's, 2 T's. There's a ton of stuff on there. It's
I'm gonna
just
write that in the chat for you.
writing it's about all I'm writing about now. So there's that. But so just to wrap this thing about the improvising
Yeah, go
is that, PTA creates this culture on his sets that allows the actors to become who they have, because if you're bringing in people like Leo and Sean and Benicio, these people have been sinking themselves, doing deep dives into characters for 40 or more years. And so he really allows them and doesn't, chop them off, but allows them to be co-creators with him in the process. So um, that's, and I just, when we're talking about this movie, like, it's important to talk about, to me, like, what is it that makes PTA great and his films great? And why is he likely going to win the Big 3 trilogy, at the Oscars in 10 days, picture, director, and screenplay. Um, like, another thing he does is, dailies. He shows dailies to the cast
Mhm.
and crew, anybody who wants to come in, and I just learned he apparently puts a bar at the back of the room at all of these places, and because this movie was shot in so many different locations, it was sort of like a standing joke that, now I guess he had to have like, somebody's on the film staff that has to set up these screening rooms in each place that they're, because now we're shooting in Eureka, and now we're in San Diego, and now we're in El Paso. So everywhere they went, they had to have a screening room. And the reason he does this is so that the actors and the whole crew can become aware of what it is they're creating here. Because, you're standing on the side of the road, or you're in the makeup room or something. You don't know what the movie is. But that's why each night he shows the dailies of what they've been shooting. And on top of that, which is really cool, he's been working with Radiohead's savant, Johnny Greenwood, since There Will Be Blood in 2007. He's had Johnny do all of his scores since. And so Johnny Greenwood was composing the score as things are going on. And I don't know how they did it, but PTA was sending Johnny scenes and sequences and stuff. And so he was composing the movie as it was being made. And so when PTA would show the dailies, he could actually put rudimentary scores behind it, like this is what it's going to sound like, which really gave the cast and crew like, oh, this is what we're making. Because, for instance, I was just watching the Witches of Eastwick, okay, in 1987. Uh, Nicholson, Cher, Susan Sarandon, and Michelle Pfeiffer. Um, and Cher, I just happened to see an interview, and she said, I didn't know what this movie was until I saw the screening the other day. So actors can be involved in a movie and they just do their little part and they don't know really what the big picture is that the auteur has in mind. And so PTA is very diligent and you know collaborative and wants everybody to know what the vision is that we're creating here. And so that's one of the many things he does to achieve the collective unity and have the choir singing in harmony um, uh, that worked so effectively in this. Um, and there was one little momentary scene I wanted to point out. I've never seen anybody mention it yet, but there's this moment in the film where they go back to Benicio. Leo and Benicio go back to his apartment, and Leo's asking for a gun. Like, do you have a gun here? I'm going to need a gun. And the, instead of just going and having the Benicio character, open a closet and take the gun out or something, it's underneath the bed. Okay.
Mhm.
But it's too far away under the bed. And so the Benicio character has to lean on the floor and reach in, and he can't reach it. And then he's got to move his body and kind of go in. And like we can all relate to that when there's something out of reach and we've got to kind of move our bodies. And how can I get my arm in there? And that whole little sequence, okay,
Yeah.
took would have to have taken several setups. And they'd have to have the camera under the bed and Benicio reaching, and he can't reach it. And then you got to have the camera out here to where he scooches his body over and squeezes himself under the bed a little bit more. And then you're back to underneath the bed, and he can just barely get it with his fingers and starts to pull it out. But all of that detail took multiple setups and and the idea to do it and all to show simply to cinematic storytelling to
Right.
show that like Benicio hasn't touched this gun in a long time and it's so far under the bed. But who thinks to think of that, like we're good, the gun is going to be under the bed but it's going to be out of reach. And to have and the camera's under the bed, and you can see the Benicio character going, he can't get it, and then he gets himself in a little closer. It's like, oh, it's
Builds the
just
tension.
what
It
was that up
builds the
to you?
tension.
Pardon me?
Builds the tension. Yeah.
Built attention, yeah.
And
Um,
you have to, and like you said, you have to really think it through, right? You have to have the idea, and who does that?
right.
Right.
And like just all of that, like the extra work that went into and again, it's show don't tell. Remember, like every writing teacher ever told you, show don't tell. And PTA is just so great at the show don't tell, um, which is what I love. Um, so um, and then editing, okay? This film has already won 16 best editing job of the year awards.
Ah, wow.
And it's up for it at the Oscars. Um, and it's just so integral to again the study of film. And like I wouldn't have known what editing was before, but like how the pacing of a movie. Is it sort of a slow, gradual build, meaning, and in that case, the scenes are going to be longer, you know? Or is it going to, this movie, a funny thing, when I went to this the first time, I don't know if you know the backstory, but I um, when PTA made his first film, which he called Sydney, but the studio retitled it Hard Eight. It's about a gambler in Las Vegas type thing. Um, they screwed with his film, and it was a huge disaster. And PTA, I will never make another film unless I've got final cut.
Yeah.
And so every film he's ever made, he
Creative
has,
control. Yeah.
yeah.
So
And,
important.
and so for this movie, when I went, I went to it that first night, I saw that it was 2 hours and 41 minutes. And I said, "Oh, Mr. Final Cut probably needed a second set of eyes on this thing." you know, and it goes by at lightning speed. You can't believe it. And that's editing. And so this young-ish editor who did it is just brilliant, and that's the pacing in a movie, and that's what PTA has really achieved here. Like, for instance, in that Phantom Thread, the one about that 2 films ago about the clothing designer, um, like, it's just got a much slower pace to it, kind of intentionally for the tone of the movie. This movie just rocks, and flies by. You just can't believe, like I said, boom, 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 until it's over. You can't believe it. So anyway, that's just, about, editing. And then, cinematography. This guy's great, and, he's also won the British Cinematography, Society's best, cinematographer of the year. He won it at the BAFTAs, I think, and, the American one doesn't come out, it will be announced on Sunday, but the cinematography is absolutely fantastic throughout this whole thing, and just a few, and they use VistaVision cameras, by the way, which, haven't been used since they were used in the late '50s
Interesting.
into 19, and because the film, rather than the spool of film being this way, the spool of film goes this way,
Okay.
or it passes through
This
the lens,
yeah,
and much
that's
gets recorded onto each frame of the film, so it's a much richer image.
interesting.
And, the last film was
More expensive, I guess.
and, um, try finding the blank film stock.
Right, right, exactly, you know?
Um,
This reminds me of the 3P or something system they used for Masks and Anonymous. I don't know if you know that film, but you do know Masks and Anonymous, yay. You know, Bob Dylan won an Oscar for Wonder Boys too, by the way.
yes,
And you
right.
know what? You were talking about him sending bits of the film. That's what Curtis Hanson, he sent bits of film to Bob Dylan, and he got a CD back with things that changed on it,
Oh, wow. Well, that's such a great song.
which is really inspired by the scenes of the film, and actually the video that I quite often rehash on my texts, articles is, intercut with Bob Dylan being in the scenes in the film in Pittsburgh, which is, of course, near and dear to my heart.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Um,
Back to you.
so the last film
Yep.
that was actually shot on 1961, One-Eyed Jacks, the Marlon Brando picture.
Okay.
Um, and because I guess it was sort of just such a problematic, um, camera and everything, it sort of got abandoned, and then they used it for some scenes a couple of years ago on The Brutalist. Was the only and then get the and so, like, where do you find a camera that can do it? Where do you find the film stock? Where do you find a projector? But, the actor Giovanni Ribisi? I forget,
I don't.
well, he's great. He's a, rich ca oh, he's in Masked and Anonymous, by the way. That
What's he
great
play?
the great scene in the back of the
Oh, the
bus.
back of the bus. He's the soldier.
Yep.
Oh, okay, then I do know him. Okay, thanks.
He get this, like, in his spare time where he restores VistaVision cameras. He's like a technician guy.
That's such an interesting insight.
Yeah, who would have thunk it? And, so anyway, so they got one of them from him, and, so anyway, so that's how they shot the whole thing, which is just extraordinary, and there's some little you can find some, short little, like, teaser things, like behind the scenes type footage
Yeah,
of
do you know him?
our camera where like I say, the film stock is this way going through the camera. It's so bizarre. And
Right.
they had to, like, they had to come up with ways to rig it on the side of cars for the car scenes and everything. It was all kind of,
Yeah.
invented as they were going,
Well,
and,
that's the fun of filmmaking, isn't it?
huh?
That's the fun of filmmaking, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and the challenge for these guys
Yeah,
for sure. Um,
and your budget goes up.
that's why it was
You
such a
gotta
big.
raise money for these films too in a lot of cases. I mean, that you and I both know Michelle Ezrick, the film director,
Yeah.
and, yeah, she's always trying to raise money. Her latest thing probably won't come out for a while, even though it's, I think, all in the can now. But, you know, she got D.A. Pennebaker to help her out with her first one. So,
Huh. Yeah,
that's
well,
what it takes sometimes, isn't it? Just being able to ask the right people. And, D.A. Pennebaker, for those people who don't know, did Don't Look Back, which was one of Dylan's early films. Did he do Eat the Document too? Which you can
well,
find.
he was
I
sup
can't find it. Good.
he was supposed to, and then Dylan decided that he was a filmmaker and
Oh,
took
right, okay.
all the film stock and it's up in his house in Woodstock,
And that's why we can't find it.
and he never made a master print, I mean, a backup print. So
Um,
he was just and then he got everything into a mess, and he called, Penny to come up and say, "Oh, I'm fucked up."
did you
And
know Penny before he passed?
I never met him, which
No.
I'm really regretful because he lived in New York, and I
Right.
wasn't in a film phase, and if I would have been of a mind,
You'll get there. But
I'm
you'll
sure
get there.
I'm sure I could have.
And I'm trying to get Michelle on the show eventually too to talk up this stuff because I helped back Cracked Up, the second film, and of course, I just love this one, the Wavy Gravy movie, Saint Misbehavin', got her
Yeah, that'd be
signature there
great.
on the side.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I also have this one here, Flashing on the 60s. Do you know this one?
Um,
It's a
oh,
travel document by Lisa Law,
okay.
who was responsible for the free kitchen at Woodstock. Were you at Woodstock? You're too young.
Yeah, too young.
Too young. Me too.
I
And
wrote a whole book about Woodstock '94, the 25th anniversary, and that was great. '99 was a disaster, but '94 was great.
well, I tell you, I lived very close to a guy who was at 69,
Ah,
and, his father was in the 100th Bomb Group. So you mentioned Spielberg. You've heard of Masters of the Air, the miniseries Spielberg did on
mhm,
Apple TV?
no.
No? Anyway, that series is about the 100th Bomb Group, and Jack's father was shot down over Minster and ended up playing saxophone in a POW camp as part of the Spielberg miniseries they did with Tom Hanks and some other guys. Anyway, so small world there. Jack and I keep thinking we're gonna do a show about Jack. I thought I'd call it, Torn and Frayed Films.
That's cool.
Jack is just a raconteur. He just, like, talks a mile a minute. He's real tight in with Emmylou Harris and characters like that, who do a lot of things for Bonaparte's Retreat, Emmylou Harris's, Retreat for Dogs.
Mm.
Anyway, we could go on in all kinds of different directions, like I said, if I'm not careful. So let's get back on track.
Um, so the cinematography in this thing,
Yes, cinematography.
is unbelievable, and, one of the cool things, man, so I hope this guy wins. I really hope the woman casting director wins for casting, but I don't know, but, anyway, this guy, who anyway, one of the cool little things he did was,
Yes.
you attach the cameras to mounts on the sides of cars so that you can get, like, a close-up of the driver and whatnot.
Right, right.
And he intentionally, ever so slightly, loosened the screws on the mounts. So there's just a little bit of
Jiggle.
yeah,
Yeah.
which really helps,
You
if
feel like you're in the car. Yeah.
yeah, and, like, make the audience, like, a little off 'cause, it's
Yeah.
got a shake to it. But that was intentional, like, "Oh, I'm gonna just loosen these just a smidge so that we can do that."
Yeah, get
Um,
that vibration in there. Yeah.
so there's that. And then just one other thing that PTA wants and does is, extreme close-ups of the face,
Yeah.
which he says that he got that from Jonathan Demme. But what it, is that it allows the viewer into the internal world of the character. And you have to have a great actor whose face can express the internal world of that character.
Yeah.
And, so PTA uses that a lot, and you see it a lot in this movie, and that's the purpose of it, is that, rather than if you see a shot like this versus you see a shot like this,
Yeah. That's
and
what we're doing here.
yeah, anyway, that's just, like, one of the many other, really cool things about PTA films, and then another thing I wanted to get to was when I first I wrote a review after I first saw it that first night
Yep.
and on my website. And one of the things I said was, expect nominations for the Oscar nominations for picture, screenplay, director, Sean Penn. I cited the casting because I knew this was going to be the inaugural year for that, and a couple of other things. And I said, and if there was an Oscar for location shooting,
Mhm.
which there should be, it would be up for that too. Because PTA scouted this movie and it's his team for 2 years before they shot it. And so the locations are like, I dare say this PTA is the best location filmmaker there is. And I'm really into location shooting, for a bunch of reasons. Woody Allen, one time said, you know, 100 years from now, I'm gonna be remembered for what was in the background of my shots, because Woody's a big location guy.
Yep.
And I love that, you know, w in set design, which was called art direction back in the day, now it's called production coordination. Um, I cite Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf in 1966 as the film that kind of for production design, sets, okay, internal sets that movies are filmed on. That the set for that movie was unbelievable. And prior to that, if you look at movies, say from the 50s, the 40s, or whatever, the sets are just awful. Like there was no, thought or money or, effort put into making sets look like real places. Um, so I hate bad sets, studio lots. Um, and obviously the best way around that is to shoot location. And PTA shoots everything look on location. Um, and um, uh, so he was doing this for years, um, and so it's so much more authentic, and so, like, the cabin that they're in out in the woods is, he they found. But anyway, so I was saying, "Oh, there should be a, like, best location shooting Oscar," you know?
Yeah.
And, sort of as a joke. Well, I found out there is the California Location
Alright.
Society for film. And there's an actual group that, like, all of the location managers are part of this collective. And sure enough, they voted this like the location shooting movie of the year.
There you
Uh,
go.
so that's really funny. Oh, and just while we're on that, and before we get away, so you know, there's the BAFTAs, which are the British Oscars, where the whole industry votes, right? But every, discipline or craft in filmmaking has its own guild, okay? There's the Directors Guild, Producers Guild, Cinematographers Guild, Editors Guild, Sound Guild, all of these things, right? And this film, however it does at the Oscars in 10 days, this thing has already won. The Directors Guild of America said this was the best directed film of the year. The Producers Guild of America said this was the best produced film of the year. Writers Guild is this Sunday. Editors Guild picked this the best edited film of the year. Screen Actors Guild gave this 7 nominations, the most any film has ever been nominated in the history of the Screen Actors Guild. Art Directors Guild said it was the best art design film of the year. Set Directors Society said it was the best set direction, decoration of the film. Then I saw, like, you don't think of this film as a costume film, but sure as shit, it won the Costume Designers Award for
Big
best
one.
contemporary. Uh,
DiCaprio's costume in that break 16 years down the road, that's
yeah.
great costume.
And then get this, like if somebody had anyway, hair and makeup. It was on the the Oscars put out their like, short list of like the 10 films that were going to be up for, hair and makeup. And it was
Yep.
on that list. And I'm like, this is not a film that I think about for hair and makeup. And sure as shit, the Hair and Makeup Stylists Guild voted this the best hair in a contemporary feature film and the best makeup. So it's won the Guild Awards for the all these people, the hair people do is do hair. And that's the only people who can vote in that guild. And every single one of these guilds I've just mentioned named this as the best in their craft for this year.
It's
So
something,
um, there's
nothing to sneeze at there,
yeah,
and that's why you've seen it 9 times.
yeah.
We gotta get that in there too. I did mention it in the chat, but I've, mentioned it here too that you've, really dove into this one, and it and, we need the scholarship on these things, so I'm really glad that you're becoming one of those.
Well, right on. And you're welcome, and thanks for asking. And we probably covered a lot of this. Just the score. We haven't talked enough about the score, which I think is the greatest score.
Radiohead's
Yeah, this Johnny Greenwood.
Johnny Greenwood.
This is the greatest score I have ever heard in a film. And the score is like another character in the film. And ideally, a score should be, very much accenting a scene. And of course, there's been great scores throughout the 100 years of, well, yeah, almost 100 years of sound pictures. Um, and, but the way that the score in this drives the scenes, drives the action, drives your energy when you're in your seat in the theater at home. Like, you're like, "Ah." Speaking of loosening the screws on the cameras of the car, like, this is like, "Ah," and it's so much a character of this film, and I think Sinners is gonna win because the guy, composed, a lot more music for that film, and it seems to be kind of the front runner for that. But my God, I sure wish this would win, and I sure think it deserves it. And it becomes an actual character, and that's you've got something that's just in your ears. There's
Yeah.
no visual, and so there's the actors, which you can see in the production design and everything. But you can only hear the music. And it's incredible that, like, I love symphonic music, right? Beautiful symphony strings, a cello, viola, violins, the strings, and I've never heard this before, where the guy writes this, scores the strings, and then the second instrument you hear is like a Neil Peart full drum kit, just banging the shit out of the percussion. So it's this symphonic, you know, classical kind of sweet thing, and then boom,
That's
boom, 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 along with the strings. It's so wild, and then a bunch of the times, it's a piano-based score on a grand piano, and so you're like this, sort of staccato, beat of using a grand piano, but then it'll be a drum underneath it, or sticks on a wood block, like, so it's percussive. And I've just never heard a score where the drums are as prominent as they are throughout the whole thing, and then either accompany, so it's like a grand piano and a drum kit, or symphonic strings and a drum kit. um Super unusual and super effective. So talking about seeing it multiple times, as I said, the first time you go, it's kind of overwhelming and everything. And then, he goes, "Oh, I really noticed how good Leo is in this." And
uh-huh.
then the third time, "Oh, I really, man, that Chase Infinity, 23 years old. Holy shit, she is
Yes.
really, really good." And then it was actually the fourth time I saw it that the score, I mostly watched the movie listening for the score, and that it took me like 4 viewings for the score to really kick in. But what an element of the masterpiece of this film. So, there's that.
Beautiful. Thank
So
you so much, Brian. I mean, this is a really good deep dive. We gotta do more of this, I
sure.
think. I don't know, how big are you into Weimar cinema?
Uh,
Have you gotten into the German directors?
you know,
Murnau and Lang and
I have to confess, and it's a shortcoming on my part, but if the dialogue in a movie isn't in English,
well, they got subtitles. And some of them
my
are silent films with subtitles.
my line about that is, I don't wanna be reading a book when I'm trying to watch a movie,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I can understand that. I
Yeah.
mean, I used to go to, films in Europe and different countries, and I get the if it was in a different language, I would get the subtitles in that language of the locals. It was interesting. I saw French films in, Danish subtitles, which really gives you a different view of it, right? Because you're actually getting little I understand a little bit of all these languages, but, it's a different experience.
Well, it was, Tarantino was insistent upon this in,
Uh-huh.
Inglourious Basterds, which we talked about, where a number of the characters speak, French and German in the movie,
Yeah,
and he said, "No subtitles, no, converting it to English."
yeah.
He wanted the actors had to and the scene itself and how they portrayed it had to convey the meaning. And that was
Right.
the time I remember seeing that in a film because, the standard Hollywood studio is, well, we've gotta put it in English at the bottom so our stupid audience can follow. And Tarantino was like, "No." And it's really neat in this movie, there's no English subtitles, but a number of the characters end up speaking Spanish a number of times, and I love that they don't, like, simplify it and put in English at the bottom what he's saying. You have to just simply get
Roll with it.
get from how the actor is delivering the line, the intention, how the person reacts to it, what they're saying, and, that is mature filmmaking as far as I'm concerned.
We got some questions for you, Brian, too. The one I see is, have you seen Anemone with DDL and Sean Bean et al? I don't know who DDL is actually,
I don't know, so I don't
and I've
really
not seen Anemone either. A film called Anemone. But, you've seen some great films. You've been educating yourself on filmmaking, on all these different aspects of filmmaking, the cinematography. I think that, one of our friend Michelle does some beautiful cinematography in Cracked Up. You've seen Cracked Up?
yeah,
Yeah, and, she's using Dustin Yelland's sculptures
mm,
for part of it, which are kind of these translucent things made up of all kinds of bits and pieces,
mm,
and they look like humans, but they're all made up of bits and pieces of
right,
bric-a-brac.
yeah.
Kinda 'cause you're kind of fractured and by trauma, and, that's her message, that we all have this trauma we carry around within us and can be treated, um, and that we're all putting ourselves back together and figuring out how to get breakfast rather than be breakfast, or b dinner in this case. I actually had my dinner before we got on. I hope you have had yours. Do we wanna do
Yeah,
a
we
little
just sort of
summing up?
well, yeah, we can sort of, wrap up, one thing I meant to say this at the beginning, but I'll get it in the end, and do you can put in a description underneath these things, right? Underneath the videos, can you, after the fact?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can, and
Well,
actually,
uh,
you're gonna be an author of it as I am, so
okay,
you will own it just as much as I do. It
um,
should show up on your YouTube. If you've
okay.
got a YouTube, it should show up also on mine. It definitely will on mine, I know, because I scheduled it, but, yeah, we can work all those things out offline,
Okay,
and
look,
hopefully we'll jam a bit.
we
Yeah.
so I wanna put this in the comments and to those who are listening and
Yep.
hear there's speaking of learning about films, there are 2 fantastic channels on YouTube that I have used since I began in this process. One is called Studio Binder.
Studio Binder, I'm putting it in now.
Okay. They do these sort of instructional videos on like what is a gaffer, what is a best boy,
Mhm.
what's a panning shot, what's an edit, all the different kinds of edits, and so on and so on. And then they'll show you, films like here's what a transition edit looks like,
Yeah.
here's passing edit looks like, and so on. And absolutely fantastic. So Studio Binder, and the other one is Cinefix, which is CINE fix, FI.
Alright.
Um, and these are, you know, when I was doing like Scorsese's up here and cameras here and everything stuff, like these the people who make these films are
Spielberg.
these videos are like up here. And and so they'll use all these films throughout history to show you what it is there. Here's what we mean by this. And
Right.
they cover every aspect of filmmaking. And so you go to their channel and you can just scroll down and again, what is a score? What is casting? What is, whatever element of film you want to, what's a gaffer do? Um, so I wanted to get those out there and we should put it in the comments so that, you
It
know,
is there.
people can find them.
Now the comments pretty much will go away on us, but we can write, in
I
some
didn't mean the comments.
the
I meant in the description underneath the
in
video.
the description, we can write up all this
That's
stuff
what I
too.
meant, yeah.
I will definitely, retain that in my head and do as bookmarking of my YouTube for Cinefix and
Studio Binder.
Studio Binder, folks. A son of Daniel Day-Lewis, Ronan was the director of Anemone, apparently. It's a real art house film in his opinion. It sounds vaguely familiar. Ronan Lewis was the director.
Okay, well, I jotted it down. I'll look for it.
Okay. Yeah, we can always expand our knowledge, and, when we get in here, we get to, see what's gonna churn up from the depths as we harrow the field.
Mhm.
That's what I liked about harrowing, and also I think that, it is harrowing. One of my good friends too out in Pittsburgh is, Laurie Cardilla. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She was an actress, and, The Day of the Dead, the Night of the Living Dead came along, and that was really seminal in a lot of ways with a African American lead in the 1960s, and didn't have a happy ending. And then you got the very comedic Dawn of the Dead in the shopping mall, and then Day of the Dead, first strong female lead, that was Laurie.
Oh,
And I've gotta get her on here one of these days. She's, right now getting treated for cancer, so, it's a little hard to nail her down, I think, but, she came on live with me one day when I was just doing my passing show, and I was walking up through Adams Morgan, and we just rapped for a while like you and I do sometimes.
uh-huh.
Okay, I should not
Yeah.
trespass on your time too much more.
Yeah, what I love, when we started to talk about doing one of these things is to be able to talk about contemporary art
Yes.
that's being made in our time right now. As and I don't mind. We could do a whole episode on the Sting, but I love to engage our world and your listeners. And I know this is a big part of what you're about. And as I told you on election day last year, I wrote the note, spend every minute in the world of art. And to when there's a masterpiece like this comes along, which I started to say about, I don't know if I quite got to that line at the beginning about that I started to study film. And then this film came out. And I was like, this is like the reward. This is like the culmination. A frickin' masterpiece has been made in our time. And I mean, cinematically, script, performances, themes, it's an unmitigated masterpiece. I think in one of the greatest films ever made in the history of cinema, in my opinion. And I've been doing
Oh,
this
yeah.
evaluation, like what do I think are the greatest films ever made? And I've got a piece that's ready to go on my website, and I include The Sting, The Player, All the President's Men, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, the great Rear Window. What are the greatest movies ever made? And I think by every metric, like when I went down that list of the guilds, and every single one of them said editors voted this is the best edited film of the year. The cinematographers voted this is the best shot film of the year. The directors voted this is the best directed film of the year. For that, like a dozen different disciplines in filmmaking, all in their own individual, you know, clubs or societies, named this the best at what their skill set is. And so this is just, in my mind, an absolute masterpiece in every regard. And and so we should celebrate it. And I think that's what your show wants to do, is to turn people on to great art that, because it's art that we can all see. It's not just playing at the National Gallery in DC where you have to be in DC to go there. Everybody can see this.
Yep, it's a fact. And, if you
Oh,
wanna entertain yourself further, The Hitchhiker's Guide to Jack Kerouac by Brian Hassett is also out there and available. Relics.com has recently been advertising it, so I don't know if Brian gets a cut of what Relics sells, but who knows? I You can get it directly from Brian too, I expect. In fact, Brian autographed this copy to me. I wanna show that, Brian, before we go. There we
Okay.
go. There. Isn't that beautiful?
What does it say at
My
the bottom?
fellow
It's nice to
My
play.
fellow adventurer Hal, stay on the road and on the bus. It's nice to play with someone who keeps the beat. And then it's Brian Hassett near
Right
signature.
on.
Very sweet of you. And I didn't think you even knew me from Adam at the time you wrote all that, but now we do.
Yeah.
And who knows who else we're going to get to know better? Mick O'Brien. I think I'm going to draft you on the show. You've been a really good raconteur here. So when you're up to it, hit me up. Anybody can go live on Harrowings. I'm not really, discriminating. But that's not to say that I haven't caught a really great raconteur just now. Thank you, Brian. I will be
Well,
out.
here's
Yeah,
more great art that will lead us to more great podcasts.
indeed. Let's make great art as
Yes,
well.
I'm all for it.
And Paul, good to see you. We're about to sign off here, but you can catch us on YouTube in the reruns. Very good. So all good and out here.
Okay, peace.
Hasta la vista.